Hi. So I thought I would do a video on primary keys for you and so that you can have it and refer back to it. So in this video, I want to go over an introductory to primary keys, give some characteristics of primary keys, and then talk about how to apply some of the more difficult concepts of primary keys so you can get it so that your supplemental activity is easier. So I think that the concept of primary keys initially isn't all that difficult. Um, it, uh, you can have a primary key field that is an identifier for a record based on a social security number, your S number like you do for being at Front Range. They could use your fingerprint, an account number like at a bank. There's lots of different examples of identifiers in our world that are known and could be used as a primary key. And often you call those natural keys. They're just identifiers that we commonly use in our society, or else they may be commonly used within a company. And so they would be a preferred identifier as opposed to one that you make up, which would be a surrogate key. Okay, so let's talk about some characteristics of primary keys. They can be made of one field, right? Like I just talked about with an S number, social security number. Or they can be made of more than one field. And in that case, they can be referred to as a composite key. They must have a value in them. Any field that comprises a primary key, whether it's one or more, none of those fields can be left blank. Okay? And when you talk about them being left blank, that doesn't mean that they have a space in them or any other character. When they don't have any character in them at all, it's known as a null value. Okay? And they cannot be repeated. Okay? So if you have an S number that's the only identifier in a record, it cannot be repeated on another record. Okay? And also the combination of values within a composite key cannot be repeated on a different record. Okay, and that's a little more complicated, but I think you'll get that concept as you go on and learn in your supplemental activity, and also as I go on in this talk on this video. Okay, and so you can use a natural key like I talked about, or it can be generated key, which would be a surrogate key. Okay, names are usually not the best for fields for primary key, and I really want to stress this. Do not use names for primary keys. So for example, a first name and a last name, they should not be used as a primary key. First of all, for a first name, you could type in Kathy, Kathleen, Catherine, and they could all be referring to the same person. That's one reason. Then also, if you used, say, Kathy Smith, well, there's a lot of Kathy Smiths in the world, so it's not the likelihood of having another Kathy Smith is really high. So names those, people's names are not very good. And also if you think about part names, for example, like for car parts, once again, everybody is going to abbreviate differently, and they might not exactly call the same item. They may not name it the same as somebody else, and everybody may have different names, and it can get really crazy. So numeric identifiers are a lot better in that case. Okay, so let's go over an application of a primary key. Okay, so here, let's say that one student is tracking the classes in his semester and is typing it in to a table. Okay, and so here you've got class ID, and over here you've got the class description. Okay, and this is just for one student. So you can use class ID as the primary key, right? It's just for one student, and you just type in all the classes in a table, and this can be the primary key, and each one of these is unique. Okay. Oops. All right, we'll keep going. All right, so here you want to track in their class, so you want to track classes for multiple students. What do? Here you've got a student ID, the class ID, and the class description. Well, look, if you just, all you did to that table that we just saw was add a class, add the student ID, okay? Well, here we have a situation where none of the classes are, oh, wait, I'm trying to look. No, none of the classes are the same, okay? So the class ID still works fine, even though, yeah, this class ID still works fine, okay? And the student ID was added, okay? But what happens if a student 040 wants to take CIS 115 with student number 039? See, here's 039 CIS 115, and here 040, you want to add them on to the table, and you want to say that 040 will have CIS 115 as well. Keep in mind, this is the primary key. Okay? Well, if you type that record in, Access would give you an error. Why? It's because the primary key is class ID, and if you duplicate that, which you would by typing in this record, it will give you an error. Okay? So what would you do to fix the error? Okay? What you do is change the primary key to a composite key using student ID and class ID. Okay? All right, so the data below can track for one semester. Okay? Why? What if 039 fails CIS 118 and has to take it over again? What will happen if you type that record in here? You've got, here you've got CIS 118, okay, and student ID. So these two are the primary key, okay, and you go to add 039, and then semester would be, say, the spring semester of 2017, and then you'd add CIS 118 again. What would happen? Access would give you an error. Why do you think that is? Because the primary key values would be repeated. Okay? The composite key student ID is student ID and class ID. Access won't let you enter this record because this information has been entered in these fields. Okay? So by changing the composite key again so that it includes the semester field, you then are able to have a unique identifying information. So then now we can add 039, and then we could say spring 2017 CIS 118, and you would be all right. It wouldn't give you an error. Okay? So in summary, unique record identifiers are used for a primary key, and a primary key is not repeated on any other record. Okay. Characteristics of primary keys. It can be made of one or more fields, and in the case when you have more than one field, it's called a composite key. And all values in the primary key fields, all primary key fields must have a value. If you don't, you get an error. And if you can use natural keys, it's better. But if natural keys are not available, then you would create or generate them. In Access, you'd probably use auto number, although you don't have to. You can do some fancy programming, I suppose, but auto number is usually easier. And names are usually not the best fit for a primary key. Okay, and then finally, primary keys. You have to be careful about how you apply them, and think: do I need one field, two fields, or three fields to make a unique situation, and so that I don't get errors, duplicate errors. Okay, so that's basically a summary of primary keys. So this is just what I used in my face-to-face class, but it's okay to ask a lot of questions. Make sure that you post to the questions discussion post if you're in the face-to-face class. Remember that the escape key is your friend. That's really important. The escape key is your friend. If you get an error and you can't seem to get Access to stop giving you the error, make the error go away and keep pressing the escape key several times, and it'll finally let you out. And let's see, make sure that you read the supplemental activity instructions very carefully. There's a lot of detail to them. Okay? And then just as a as final notes, the pain of yesterday is the strength of today. I always like to remind people of emotional strength. And then here's a nice joke to end with. When I was born, I was so mad at my parents, I didn't talk to them for 2 years. Okay, and with that, I'll end. Thanks.